Oh, good.
Alright, it's 7 o'clock, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. We're going to have kind of a situation where some of it's going to be this way and some of it's going to be that way because of the presentation. So we'll gently turn our chairs around when needed be. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is June 13th, 2023. Council, before we get to moving on, I'd like to ask to be able to amend the agenda for tonight's meeting to move the first 3 items of new business before the unfinished business to accommodate our guests and their schedules. So any objections? No. Okay, so continue with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll get to it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Okay, council, approval of the minutes from May 23rd, 2023 meeting.
That would be a chance to read, and I make the motion that we accept the minutes for May 23rd, 2023.
I second the motion.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve the minutes from May 23rd, 2023 meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, as you can see, we do not have Mike nor Laura, but we do have a quorum. So with the amended, moving on to the new business item A, I'd like to proceed with introductions of our RCAC presentation. RCAC stands for Rural Community Assistance Corps. Laura Blau and Dessa Wells are joining us via Zoom from a conference they are attending in California. So there's an important note that I need to relay to everyone. RCAC has requested that all comments be at the end of the presentation. So write your questions, comments down so you can be recognized at the end of the presentation. It'll take probably 30 minutes, maybe longer, for the PowerPoint. And council, you have been provided with a copy of the slides to follow along if you so desire, or continue to watch up there. We also have Dan Remick running the technology of the evening.
We'll see.
Okay, all right. With that, I'll turn it over to Lori and Dessa. So, but before you get going, Dessa, audience, gently turn your chairs to the rear so that you can watch the presentation.
Is everyone ready?
Yeah, I think we're there.
Council, thank you so much for allowing us to join you tonight virtually with this presentation. My name is Dessa Wells. I'm an assistant zone manager based out of Vancouver, Washington for RCAC, and my supervisor is Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori Bell. Thank you for allowing us to join you tonight. I'm the regional manager for Washington and Oregon, and I live in Spokane.
And I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera on so that you can just see the presentation for now. And as Mayor Bell did share with you, due to the technology issues and being able to hear and microphone issues, we just ask that you please try to hold any questions or comments that you might have to the end, and we'll be happy to hear them all. And let me get this going. There we go. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. In the PDF that you received, it does have mine and Lori's contact information, as well as the RCAC website that you are more than welcome to visit and check out what we do. To give you a little bit of background about RCAC, we are a subsidiary of Rural Community Assistant Partnerships, and we have partnerships with state and with federal regulatory agencies that enables us to assist small water utilities with building their technical, managerial, and financial capacities of their utility. Lori, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, so RCAC, we cover the 11 western states that are shown there in green, plus the Pacific territories. And so our area that Dessa and I really focus on, though, is Washington and Oregon. But we do have staff and other resources that we reach out to for assistance on things as well.
Thank you. We wanted to share with you some information about a small water system management program guide. This is a requirement of the Department of Health for any Group A water system to operate and manage their system. The Washington Department of Health's mission is to protect the health of the people of Washington State by ensuring safe and reliable drinking water. And so, by completing a small water system management guide, this enables water systems to be in line and eligible to apply for funding, such as the state revolving funds. And this guide, this plan, has to be approved by the Washington Department of Health before a funding application can even be filled out. Also, when completing this guide for your water system, it satisfies the Small Water System Management Program requirements for the Washington Administrative Code 246-290-105. The Small Water System Management Guide is something that we assisted the town of Lynn in completing this past fall. And it was approximately 244 pages by the time we finished. It's divided in 3 chapters: managerial, technical, and financial. And the Department of Health feels that these terms describe the main attributes of a successful water system. We received in April the comments back from the Department of Health addressing some things that they would like to see revised with the Small Water System Management Program Guide. And that's why we're here this evening, is to share that with you and the importance of making these revisions so that the town of Lynn can apply for state revolving funds to repair or replace the well that is down. When the Department of Health talks about planning, their perspective is committed to appropriate planning by all water systems. Safe and reliable drinking water doesn't happen by itself. Dedicated people committed to appropriate planning, design, operate, and management make it happen. And these are direct quotes from the Department of Health, the regulatory agency for drinking water in Washington. Many small system governing boards receive little or no compensation for their time and oversight. The members often don't fully understand the complete role and responsibility for providing safe and reliable drinking water when they take on these duties. And many small water system operators have responsibilities that extend beyond the water system, and they often have limited time and resources to do their job. People who govern or operate small community water systems, they have giant responsibilities, and safe drinking water is a 24/7 activity. Serious illness may result from a single unanticipated event in the systems. Economic consideration, the value of communities' homes and businesses is connected to the safety and reliability of the water system that it serves. Water system customers have high expectations as they should have high expectations just as they place on their phone and electric utilities. Serious legal obligations, these are the repercussions and financial liabilities associated with owning and operating a public water system. Small systems face tremendous financial pressure because they spread their costs over fewer customers. This means each regulation and new task imposes a disproportionate higher cost to each customer, and nothing lasts forever. Eventually, you will need to replace every single part of your water system. Managerial and technical planning tools will not help if the infrastructure is failing. This guide, Small Water System Management Program Guide, emphasizes the importance of evaluating your short-lived and long-lived assets to prioritize their replacement and to begin planning now how you're going to pay for it. This is the views of the Department of Health on the Small Water System Management Program Guide and the importance of planning for small water systems. I'm going to start by going over the comments that we received from the Department of Health. One of the first comments that we received was regarding water use efficiency. They consider it to be a continuous progress, and they do acknowledge and applaud the town plan for meeting and exceeding their last water use efficiency goal. However, it doesn't stop there. As you can clearly see, these are copy and pasted directly from the Department of Health. They are asking that the town council adopt a new water use efficiency goal or goals that promote water conservation by the customers. That's the demand side. They do recommend that we take a look at the water use efficiency guidebook for advice in establishing a new goal. One of the most important steps in using water efficiently is setting goals that can be measured. Goals provide a benchmark for achievements, and they play a significant role in defining success of your water use efficiency program. You must set your own goals through a public process according to WAC 246-290-830 or A, at least every 6 years. Goals should be designed to use water more efficiently. The Department of Health encourages the town of Lynn to adopt goals that help you and your customers use water in the most efficient way possible. Each goal must identify the measurable water savings that will be achieved at the time in the future, at a specific time in the future. We're going to take a look at the Department of Health Water Use Efficiency Guide, Appendix I. I believe Mayor Bell has provided you with the 15 examples that they recommend. And just to be clear, the demand side goal might focus on trying to get each customer to use less water during peak summer demands. That's just an example. So further on in the comments, they wanted to provide at least one measure that supports our newly adopted goal, and it must be demand side oriented, meaning that it encourages our customers to use less water. So if you don't mind taking a look at those goals that Mayor Bell provided you with, I'm going to pull them over here on the screen to make them bigger. Dan, are you able to see that?
Yes.
Yes, if the, yeah, it's on the back, it's a pink sheet, but it's on the back side of the, I and B. So she's on the I side.
Okay, so I'm on the line. If the Department of Health provides us with 15 examples of acceptable goals that we can implement for our customers for water use efficiency. And so these are goals that I would encourage you to choose your goals from, because we know that these are already approved and accepted by the Department of Health. And as you can see, there's several varieties, reducing average day demand per connection from 310 gallons to 260 gallons in 5 years. It's not as though they're ridiculous goals. They're attainable and they are relative goals and easy to meet. Reducing daily use per person from 100 gallons to 70 gallons in 10 years. Reduce water production per person on an average annual basis from 250 gallons per day to 230 gallons per day within 6 years. And mainly what these goals are is just to make our customers a little bit more aware about conservation of water. We have to be conservative with the resources that we have, and this is what this is encouraging, is that conservation side. And so I believe that Mayor Bell will probably go over these with you a little bit more thorough and depth, but one of these goals has to be adopted, and we have to be able to put it into the plan. They did also, with their comments, have a note that based on information provided in the draft of the Small Water System Management Program, the town has already implemented some approved water use efficiency measures, including the use of an inclining block rate structure. This is just referring to the rates that you have in place. They feel that they're knowing that this is some steps that the town has taken. They do want some revised language following the adoption of the new water use efficiency goal and implementation measures. They give some direction here on how to add language to the steps. They also want to be able to discuss the distribution system leaks and what efforts are being done to make repairs and conduct leak detection. Again, they give some more instruction in the language there on how that should be done. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the distribution leaks and repairs when we get a little bit further to the asset management portion. That these are goals that specifically the Department of Health wants us to address and revise and give them a plan in how we're going to improve and move forward. Please note that these revisions need to be made in order for the town of Lynn to apply for the state revolving funds. If not, they will not allow us to move on to the application process. Another comment that was made was regarding the budget. As part of the Small Water System Management Program Guide.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, nothing, carry on.
As part of the Small Water System Management Program Guide, we reviewed 3 years of the town's past financial history for the utility, and we created a current year budget with a 5-year projection. So when they talk about talking about the current year budget with the 5-year projection. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, I think it's important to point out that this is just for the water system, not for the town or, the wastewater treatment system or anything. This is just talking about the water system budget.
All right. Yes, ma'am. So when we did the projections for the 5 years, it shows that there's going to be a net loss for each year, and that it increases by several $1,000s each year. And the Department of Health says this is not a sustainable budget. It will not be accepted by most funders. They want us to make the necessary modification to the budget to either decrease cost or increase the revenue through rates. If we cannot find a way to balance the budget, we have to provide a plan and how the town intends to work towards a balanced budget. They want to see a written out plan that's been adopted and approved by the council. Just to give you some background information, all the quotes that I'm using tonight are straight from the Department of Health and Stormwater System Management Program Guide. And their definition of a budget is that it should cover, your total annual revenues must cover your total annual operating expenses, your debt payments, your taxes, your fees, and budgeted payments into operating emergency, short-lived and long-lived asset replacement reserves. That is the requirements of the Department of Health for the budget. Just to let you know that loan and grant funding is extremely competitive, and every funding agency, public or private, is going to expect a complete financial picture of the utilities finances. Funding agencies will not grant or loan money on favorable terms to a water system that cannot tell its complete financial story. And if you intend to obtain financing to maintain and improve your system, we have to start planning now. We will need to show that our true cost of service, what our true cost of service is, and how we plan to generate the revenues through our rates and fees to cover the cost of running our water utility. And how successful we are in collecting those rates and fees, and where the money is actually being spent. We have to commit to operating our system like a business enterprise, so that it can be self-sustaining and so that it can be sustainable for the future. To give you a little bit of information about the reserves that the Department of Health is referring to, there are two different types of reserves. There are funder required reserves, and these are required when you take out a loan, and it's in what is called the letter of conditions, and they give you a specific amount for your debt service reserve that you have to set aside, and it has to remain untouched until the last year of the loan. They typically give about 10 years for a water system to save up the amount that is money to be set aside and to be untouched. And if a system does not comply with this, they're in default of their loans. So this is a funder required reserve that Lynn has. There is also 4 designated reserves, and these are some of the other reserves the Department of Health is referring to. According to the Municipal Research and Services Center of Washington and the Government Finance Officers Association, they recommend no less than 45 days worth of savings that will cover your expenses for that 45 days. And this save up for this reserve. Another board designated reserve is the emergency reserves. And it's recommended by the American Water Works Association that this reserve be the cost of replacing your most critical assets. This could be your water source, or this could be your pump. And that's for the board to decide. And for the town of Lynn, we use the cost of replacing a pump, and that's cost is approximately $25,000. And I'm going to pass this over to Lori. We worked together in completing the Small Water System Management Program Guide, and she did a lot of work on the asset management portion.
Thanks, Tessa. And I just wanted to add one thing back on the operating reserve. A lot of water systems have found through COVID that they did not have adequate operating reserves because there were moratoriums on shutoffs, and yet people didn't necessarily pay their bills, and they ended up, a lot of them ended up draining any reserves that they had. And so that's why they are recommending that water utilities and wastewater utilities, for that matter as well, set up an operating reserve so that you can at least cover 2 months of your expenses, or 45 days is the minimum. Some of them prefer 2 months. So for the asset inventory, I worked a lot with Joe. He was great in finding information, and what we do is we try to come up with a list of all of the various parts and pieces of your water system. And we try to get the information, such as the best information we can, that includes the date it was installed. We try and come up with an estimated effective life, because, you know, like the roof on your house or your car or your appliances, nothing is going to last forever, and you eventually have to replace it. And so we try to come up with, there's different places we can look to come up with estimated useful life or effective lives. And, you know, and oftentimes those can be extended with good maintenance on them. And then we go through and we give it a condition rating to tell us, you know, is it in good condition? Is it about to fail? Because that helps prioritize the replacement on these. And then we also give it a critical number, anywhere from, if it's critical to running the water system, if you cannot provide water to your customers without this piece of equipment, then it would be a 1. If you have some redundancy, like maybe you have 2 wells, then okay, maybe each well in particular isn't absolute highest critical rating, because you could get by with the other, but people would have to cut back their water usage. And so we look at those. And then the spreadsheet that we have, it calculates the remaining useful life. And then we try to develop, we have different ways of coming up with cost estimates. And we look at, we can either put into our spreadsheet the original cost, or what a current replacement cost would be for these. And then we can, you can see over on the far right column, it gives you the replacement cost at what year it needs to be replaced. And so you can see, if you look at that top number up there, it's a fairly substantial amount of money to replace everything in the system over the next 16 years. And so, you know, so that's why we start looking at what is needed for reserve funds for these. And with this, you know, we went and so we had to make some adjustments, because, you know, we're not going to replace the entire system. we also tried to take into account the priorities, but we made some adjustments to try to make the reserve contributions as affordable as possible. And I know these are really huge numbers, but we came up with a short-lived asset reserve target of 1.85 million and a long-lived asset reserve of 1.85 million. And so we did, we did adjust these, and the thing that's important to remember with all of these reserves is nobody expects you to ask something tonight and you're going to suddenly have, for $3 or $4 million in a reserve fund. It is something that you're setting up a target, and then you work towards that each year by putting a small amount in over a period of time to get there. And one of the things that the funders are really looking for is that you are making these contributions to the sustainability of your system. And that, because they consider that if you're operating your system with a financial stability and sustainability, then you are looking at the ultimate replacement of these different pieces of your system.
What you see now is an example, well, it is the reserve budget that was in the Small Water System Management Program Guide. This is required as part of completing the guide, and as you can see, the annual contribution amounts are budgeted over a period of time. As Lori shared with you, they don't expect the reserves to be fully funded today, tomorrow, within a year. Some of them not even within 5 years, more than likely not. They just want you to have a plan in place to be preparing and setting your water utility up for long-term sustainability. I have been working pretty closely with the planner and having discussions with her regarding the reserves. And since our budget isn't balanced, we can't contribute to the reserves. As of now, we do have the one debt service reserve that's fully established, cannot be touched, but it is there. But we cannot be contributing to any of the other reserves right now because we have a deficit in our operating budget. And so she shared with me that the town of Lynn have explained in their Small Water System Management Program their plan to obtain the balanced budget, and that they will begin contributing to these reserves once the budget is balanced. This is helpful. This gives us a little bit of breathing room, but it still requires attention and action. We still have to be working towards funding these reserves, but focus mainly right now on getting a balanced budget so that we can be in line and on target for that. Something I want to share with you that was shared with us, actually, it was Joe that brought this to our attention in a meeting, when we were talking about the budget, and I was able to get some factual information on it, that there has been a 12% electric rate increase from 2016 to 2022. They are proposing another rate increase of 6% or 7% beginning in July. And I know that you probably looked at the budget in front of you, so you can see how much the water system is paying for utilities, and you can understand the impact of what the 6 to 7% will be for the water utility. It's going to be huge. And unfortunately, the 1.73 annual water rate increase is not sufficient to even cover the increases that they are under through the electric company. They're not bringing in enough money to even cover what they're being charged. I know that everyone that is sitting in that room teaching, but I also use it when I'm helping utilities with their finances. For you to have a clear picture of the impact of inflation, we wanted to show you the numbers. What $200 would buy in January of 2000 now costs us, as of April 2023, $359.43. That is an approximate inflation increase of 3.5% per year. Again, the annual rate increase of 1.73% isn't sufficient to cover the cost of inflation or the increase in the electric. To give you a little bit of a clearer picture, if you look at the budget and you look at every $200 that is on that itemized budget, you will need to add an additional $159.43 to it. That's the impact of what inflation has taken. To give you another visual, to give you a comparison, and being able to show you how the annual rate increases is reflected in comparison to the increases that have that the water utility has been under by the electric company, as well as inflation. You can see that the 1.73 is not stacking up against inflation in general or the electric increases. And so what that means is that the water utility has had to absorb these costs internally. They're having to deplete any savings that they may have had to cover these costs because the rates aren't sufficient in covering it. This is the current year and 5-year projection, 6-year budget, as it's referred to in the Small Water System Management Program Guide. And if you look really closely, you can see that after 2023, there's going to be negative balances. The revenues are not sufficient in covering the expenses of operating the water utility. In this budget, we added 4%, and that was last fall, 2022. I will share with you that as of now, in August, summer of 2023, we are calculating a 5% increase. That is how quickly inflation is impacting our economy. And as you can see, this budget does show that we are funding reserves starting in 2024 and projecting out. Even if we were to take that amount out, as we were told that we could make a plan to, we're still in a deficit, and I'll show you by how much in a minute. But just know that with a deficit of $39,295, that's a significant amount, and it only increases every year. I wanted to share with you the functions of the utility rates and what the purpose of them are for. The purpose of utility rates is to collect the true cost of providing service, which is the true cost of operating our water system, what it costs from A to Z. Our rates are to fairly distribute across all of our customer classes. The function of the rates is so that our utility can remain sustainable and so that we can continue to have economic development within our community. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Water Board Bible, but yes, there is such a thing. I promise I'm not making it up. You can Google it. It's hard to find. If you attend conferences, you might be able to snap one. So this is a quote taken directly from the Water Board Bible, and what this book is a document that is to help fiduciary duty to assure that system revenues cover the true costs of water delivered. And just so that you know, that the Safe Drinking Water Act amendments passed by Congress in 1996 contain special provisions related to small water systems. Small water utilities are given special consideration and resources to make sure that they have the managerial, technical, and financial capacity to comply with drinking water standards. However, following the passage of the Safe Drinking Water Act amendments, there has been such a greater emphasis on financial sustainability of small utilities, along with numerous tools and resources to help utilities achieve greater financial stability. One factor driving this emphasis is fewer resources, namely grants and loans that are available for utilities to help them to maintain their compliance with regulation or for other projects. Governments at all levels will be expecting utilities to be more financially sustainable and self-supporting. So what is the true cost of providing service to our customers? What is the true cost of operating our water utility? It's all of our operation and maintenance expenses, our administration expenses, our fees, our taxes, our reserves. Every expense that is incurred by the water utility is what it costs for the water utility to provide service to its customers. How the rate should be cover the cost of providing services can be done through some basic ways. One, when we look at all of the expenses, we're going to divide them between what is classified as fixed expenses and variable expenses. And to give you some context and to understand, fixed expenses are expenses that a water utility has to pay regardless of how much water you deliver to a customer. They cannot deliver a single drop of water and still have to pay these expenses. Such as, and I just have examples here on the screen. These aren't all of them exhausted. This is just some examples for our presentation. But loan payments have to be paid regardless of whether or not you produce water. Salaries have to be paid. Your insurance has to be paid. Portions of maintenance, portions of fuel, portions of your water treatment, tools. These are the costs that the water utility will incur regardless of how much service they provide. The variable expenses are expenses that are a result of delivering water to your customers. The more demand on producing water, the more these costs increase. And so some of these are going to be portions of your electric bill, because your electric bill is going to go up the more water that you're distributing and treating. Portions of your maintenance, because you're putting more demand on your system, the more water you're producing. Portions of your fuel. And the reason we use portions is because a certain amount of these expenses are expected to be fixed. And then a portion of them is associated with how much water you provide. We're going to talk about how we recover revenues that will sufficiently take care of these expenses. And one of them is through our base rate. The base rate is typically a fee that a customer pays to have access to water. Not necessarily receive water, to have access to water. The objective is to recover the utility's fixed expenses. As you may recall, these are expenses incurred before distributing any water to our customers through the base rate. So our fixed expenses should be recovered through our base rate. And to do this fairly, I've given you an example here of what it looks like. We take our calculated fixed expenses from our budget and we divide them by the average number of customers. This way, you are distributing the cost equally among your community share of having water available whenever they want it. Our goal is to recover all of our fixed costs through our base rates. And even if our base rate does include some water allotments, the amount of that variable cost should be included into the base rates. So as you can see, we took our average monthly cost of $7,246.33, and I know we all wish that that's what the utility cost was for fixed expenses. We divided it by 200 customers, and so it gives us our base rate of $36.23. And this is just to have access to the water. This is so that we have a sure way of covering those fixed expenses, regardless of how much water we produce and deliver. The usage rate is just that. It's a rate that customers pay for the water that they use. The objective of a lower usage rate is to recover the costs that are related to distributing the amount of water each customer uses in their home, the variable costs. These are the costs that fluctuate with how much water is distributed. In this example, we use 1,000 gallons for our unit of measurements. I understand that the town of Lynn uses cubic feet just for demonstration purposes. However, I used 1,000 gallons. And so to calculate this, we carry over our variable expenses. And remember, this is related to actually delivering the water to our customer's home. We divide the expenses by the average total water usage. And this will give us our system's flow and usage rates. So as you can see here, what we did is we took our variable cost at $47,034, and we divided it by the average total water used throughout our system. And then we get that our cost per gallon would be 0.002. The other thing that we look at when we are looking at rates is we look at what's called the affordability index. And the EPA states that it is affordable if it costs less than 2.5% of a small community's median household income. And the median household income is usually generated through the census data. If not, some communities have what is called an income survey completed. But what that means is the 2.5% of your median household income is considered affordable to be paid through the water utility rates. The Department of Health will review a drinking water system's rates to ensure that they are within a certain affordability index. In this example that I'm showing you, it's 1.48, and that's considered to be too low on the affordability index. And the Department of Health will advise the board to increase the rates. The reason being behind this is because if this community, said example community, isn't charging the sufficient amount of rates that it could be that's affordable for the community, a lender isn't going to fund them money. One, because they're not charging what they could or should be charging, and two, they will not be able to repay the loan if they're not charging the adequate rates. So in this example, the way that we calculate this is I use the flat rate here. And what a flat rate is that's just you pay a flat rate of $37.04 for your water, just as an example. No usage rates, nothing else associated with it. We times that by 12 months, and we get $444.48. We then divide that by the example median household income, which is $30,000 here, and that gives us 1.48%, which is well under the 2.5% of the affordability index. Just to go back really quickly, these are things that we look at then you want to make sure that your rates are affordable. You want to make sure that they're not above the 2.5%. But you want to make sure that they are right at the 2.5% where they need to be according to the EPA and Department of Health. I wanted to share a little bit with you about the average water use per household. So according to the EPA, the average American family uses more than 300 gallons of water per day at home. So this totals approximately 9,000 gallons a month. Okay, so please keep in mind that number of 9,000 gallons. So with the current rates in the town of Lynn, included with the base rates is 10,472 gallons, 1,400 cubic feet. So, as you can see, even though we have a tiered rate structure, we have our base rates and we have our usage rate over here. How many of our customers are actually surpassing that 10,472 gallons to pay for usage? And doing an average, it wasn't many, and just looking at it. And if we look at that closely, look at the amount of water that's included in the base rate. The town of Lynn water system is losing money that could be collected through the usage fees. In this rate structure, it does not promote conservation because customers are paying the same regardless of how much they use. They can use as much as they want, up to 10,000 gallons, before they are ever hit a fee for service. It also does not promote fairness across your customer classes. And what I mean by that is some customers may not pay as much, may not use as much water as others, but they still have to pay the same price. So to put in a little bit of context, and bear with me, my husband is a car guy, so that's where I tend to go when I explain things. Imagine a gas station selling gas for $66.24 for 10,472 gallons a month. A customer who may not drive very far or whose car gets good fuel mileage, they may only use a quarter of that 10,472 gallons a month. But yet they're paying the same as a person who is driving maybe a bigger vehicle or maybe one that isn't as efficient, and they use the maximum $10,472 a month. So that's what I mean by fairness, is we want to make sure that our rates are fair to all of our customer classes. You know, if you have a single person that doesn't use as much water, you have to ask yourself, is it really fair that they pay what a household of 3 is using at the same rate? See, these are things that we look into when we look at rates. To give you some context about the affordability index, I wanted to show you what the town of Lynn's affordability index and how it means. And so this is an approximate average that I calculated, just taking the annual revenue that was shared with me and dividing it by the total number of customers. And so this gives me an approximate number that the average customer water bill is $88. We multiply that by 12 months, and that gives us that one customer pays $1,056 annually. We divide that by the NHI, which the NHI census data is right there in that link. If you care to look it up, it's there. It's $60,000, 938. And that puts us on the affordability index of 1.73%. And as you can see from what I shared earlier, the town of Lynn's affordability index is below the 2.5 that the EPA states is affordable. This tells us, and To illuminate what the revenue needs are, I wanted to share with you that under the current rate structure, what we projected to generate in 2024, it's clear that it's not going to be sufficient in covering the cost of providing water service to the customers. We're in a deficit. There's a deficit of $83,940. Even if we subtract the reserved amounts of $32,612 that we budgeted in, the water utility will still be in a negative for the amount of $51,323. That's a huge amount. That's a significant amount. So, the Department of Health wants to see some steps, a plan on how to achieve a balanced budget. And so, here are some recommendations that we have come up with that hopefully you will consider in being able to work towards that balanced budget. Our goal is to show the Department of Health that we are working diligently to achieve this balanced budget. Now, I will share with you, RCAC has already agreed to perform a cost of service analysis for the town of Lynn. You may have heard it referred to as a rate study at no charge. But this takes approximately 6 to 12 months to collect and vet the data and conduct the analysis. And so some of the recommendations that we would like to suggest is decreasing the amount of water that's allotted with the base fee. This will also benefit the town's water use efficiency plan. We recommend increasing the rates at least in line with inflation, and that's 5% right now. You should know that utility rates have a short life expectancy, and when we work with our clients, one of the first things that we recommend to them is that they need to at least be raising their rates annually in line with inflation. I'm hopeful that this will get the small water system management program approved and put the town of Lynn in line to apply for loans and grants. But we need to address these comments and we need to make these revisions. Otherwise, the town of Lynn will not be able to apply for state revolving funds to replace the well. I know that was a lot of information that we shared with you, and thank you so much for your patience and holding on to our questions and comments. I'm sure that you have several.
Destin?
Yeah.
Can I just add a couple of additional comments on there?
Sure.
So there's a couple of things that you really need to consider. One is that, the next couple of years are really a prime time to be applying for this funding that is available because of that bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed last year. That the State Department of Health is expecting to have, I'm going to totally draw a blank on the number, but
I think that's something, isn't it?
yeah, substantially more money available in their SRF loan program, and they will have some that's available for loan forgiveness as well. And some of the things that they look at, though, in terms of making those loans or making the loan forgiveness is the affordability percentage and how close you are to that 2.5% of the MHI. If you are up there, brushing up against that 2.5%, then they're going to be more inclined to look for loan forgiveness or more favorable interest rates for loans that they give you. So I just think those are a couple of really important points to keep in mind with where we are in you know, the situation with funding, and so I'll just leave it at that. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Lori, for sharing. Were there any questions?
Maybe we send you all into silence.
No.
No.
We've got one hand up in the audience, Vicky.
What is lawsuits against the town and or mayor gonna do to us getting funding?
Could you repeat that, please?
What is lawsuits and against the town and or the mayor? I was with an attorney 2 weeks ago. He already told us the town is bankrupt. There's 4 lawsuits with 4 more in the works. So what is lawsuits gonna do for us getting funding?
I don't know. I'm not aware of what's going on with those lawsuits, but it depends on, I think, if it's related to the town or the water system, because I think that's why we do the budget specifically for the water system.
Well, I'll call you in the near future and I'll give you the heads up.
Okay, we've got another hand up.
I have a-
Denise.
Yeah, I had a question. You got the 60,000 median income. There's no way that's median income for this town. So we'd have to do a survey. And I don't know what the requirements are for that survey, but I know sometimes they can be expensive, but we cannot, that's not our median income at all. At all.
Actually, I was looking it up while they were, because I was curious about the math.
On the
And
census?
60,000 is on the higher end, so I think an average between 47 to 60,000.
I don't even
somewhere in
think,
there.
I don't even think
So that's
50s.
2020 census.
But see, one time they made phone calls, and so they only spoke to the people who had landlines, and
Right.
those happened to be 2-income
So
households.
Any,
So it depends on how they did the survey.
yes.
And it
any
needs,
data-
but either way, it needs to be redone because it's not correct. Period. So.
So just to share with you, this is for Lynn, Washington. This is from the Census Reporter. And this is where I got the $60,000 right here, the median household income.
Right, I know that that's where you got it from, but I'm saying that that isn't correct and we would have to do another survey before we can go anywhere with this.
Well, that is something that we could do, is we can do a median household income survey.
The
And there are
school,
very specific, there are very specific protocols about how those have to be conducted and the percent response that you have to get. We do those quite a bit. But
the school has this town at 80% low income. So I understand there are different criteria, but that's an awful large difference. But anyway, we don't need to keep going on about it, but a survey is really necessary.
well, and that may be something that we need to do, is do an actual median household income. However, without having a specific
Without having a specific,
median household income survey for the town of Lynn, then this is the number that the lending, the state and EPA are going to be using, because that's the best number that they have.
right, I get that.
Anybody else have a question pertaining to the water presentation?
Well, we got a lot of work
Does
to do.
anybody have any questions on that pink sheet of the goals? Any suggestions what might be able to be workable for?
Well, we need to get meters. We need to fix all the broken meters. That's number one. We can't be having meters that are not documenting what's going through. I mean, that looks like a leak.
Yeah, that is also being done. on this
No,
sheet
it's
here
not
that
being
is,
done.
used for the health, Department of Health, is that livable for anything? Vicky, you have your hand up.
You guys were just at our house a month ago, all four of you, to read our meter. We still do not have meter reading on our bill. Why?
I don't know, I will have to check that out. Heather?
Well, I have a few suggestions for the conservation of water and, for the residents of Lynn, and things that the council can do. Yeah. I also, I don't mean to step out of bounds on this one, but when we increased our water rates last year, I believe it was brought up that, it wasn't fair rate. And I personally saw some issues with the way we're being charged for our water too. For example, I left my hose running the entire week after the fire. I didn't get an increase. And I thought that was huge. And I had brought it up. So there was a huge loss for the town, and I admitted it. Why wasn't it looked into when we increased our rates? How to make it equal. The things that were addressed in this presentation could have been done back then. And it's just being done now.
Go back to it.
Okay, that's fine. But I'm just saying it is important, and I saw this coming a mile away. And we're just addressing it now, which is, again, important, but we could have been ahead of the game.
No.
Well, and your hose running, maybe it didn't calculate the 10,000.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, is you guys, as a town, could have been charging a little bit more. It's not fair for a family, like what she was saying, a family of one paying for the family of four. We aren't equal in that. Right, it is a council decision, I'm just addressing it. Yeah.
That'd be like me saying, no, that I shouldn't have to pay cash. I don't cash for a gallon of it, people do it for free. I mean, you could go back and
Food
forth
bank all the time.
with that all day long, you know, I mean,
Right, yeah, no,
and I'm not trying to argue with you, if it's what you're saying, I get what you're saying. It's like, okay, so we say, you pay $10 a month and I pay $100, you know what I mean? How's
Yeah.
that gonna,
well, I'm saying if we're in a
that's gonna be a
deficit,
trainer.
and you need to get out of the deficit, there was one way to do it, with what she suggested. Also, conservation efforts, there are ways that we can improve our landscaping. There are resources that we can give to the people to plant more, drought-resistant plants, kind of lessen our lawn, yeah. But I'm 100% in support of that. I also, actually, somebody, gave me some information for, conservation here in, Ritzville and in those Lake to help with landscaping, and they will give you a draft for your yard. As far as I know, it's free and clear for just plants, so I can get the information to you guys. Well, thank you.
Okay, back to the goals. Is there anything that, the audience can see off that list that would be workable with, to put into our small water system management plan?
Well, you can put any of them in, it's what we do. Not watering during the heat of the day, I mean, we're already
So,
doing that.
Council, this is what you're gonna have to make a motion on, is, which one of these sub-goals and measures that.
I think personally, all this stuff on here to conserve water, no selling to the landlord, no selling to farmers outside the town, which we're gonna buy thousands of gallons. And you're asking the town people to conserve water.
Well,
Get grants for lead water pumps.
look at goal number 11. Would you guys look at goal number 11? Does that feel fair to people? Or is that picking on one person?
That's the problem. It could be for me, because I have, a resort. I have, a lot of people coming and going. we've never been, or we rarely get charged for anything extra, but if you're taking away, you know, a lot of our water, I'm bringing a lot of taxes to the town too, you know, revenue, because I've got customers constantly.
Or what if we did-
My water go down.
What if we did 20% for the people with, you know, watering landscape? I mean, she's commercial business, you know, that's a little different, but what if we did reduce 20% for the highest 10% of landscape waterers
I'm sorry, yes,
for single
Can you
family?
hear me?
yes, go ahead.
If I could have everybody's attention for just a second, just to reiterate what I shared before, is that by adopting one of these goals specifically laid out, how the Department of Health has hand-fed to us is going to be in our best interest. They've already approved these specific goals. And so if we alter them in any way,
Oh,
it may not be accepted.
What
So
about
I
goal
just
7?
wanted to put that on the table.
Pretty simple, that's what I would think. Save 5 gallons per family home per day.
that's 2 toilet flushes.
That's a pretty good goal.
When it's mellow, let it mellow.
Jody has a question.
So from what I understand, they're only asking you guys, us, to come up with one. Right. To come up with one of these that looks like something we can do and add it to this projection, is what we have to do. So that's all it's not that hard.
But it doesn't have to be tonight either, does it?
It does. They need to know what they're gonna switch this to.
All right,
So like you
motion
said,
to
number
adopt goal
7.
I'll add just briefly that the water system has to report to Department of Health annually on how they're doing on their goals. So we want to adopt a goal that the town can show that they're making progress towards over a period of time, so. Yeah.
Can you say that louder for us?
Yeah, it needs to be something that can be, the town is gonna have to report on this annually. So, Department of Health has an annual water efficiency use report that has to be submitted each year. And so, we wanna pick a goal that's easy for the town to measure and show progress on over the next 6-year period. And we discussed goal 12 primarily because the peak water use in your town is in the summer. So reducing summer demand by 25 gallons per day for residential customers over the next 6 years, that also seems like a very attainable goal. I mean, it's primarily outside watering. Reducing outside watering by 25 gallons per household is a pretty easy thing to do.
I don't
In that,
know.
over a 6-year period, yeah.
But
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
not every year and it's not every one. It's across the town, an average of 25 gallons per household.
because we have a lot of single people though, and the age is getting older. We're gonna have more single people in town, so I don't think that's, I like Mike's idea best.
How is that going to be, how are we gonna show that? If we want a measurable goal, how is that gonna be seen? Is there something that you can tell those of us, what is 25 gallons a day? And how are we trying to make this goal happen? What's the measurement?
That would be about 10 minutes on a sprinkler.
Okay,
Would be
So-
about
Like
25
5 instead of 15, go down to 10.
right, so instead of saying to the people, you need to reduce by 25 gallons a day, give us something that can be measured, that's understandable, like that says, let's cut it back 10 minutes a day. Should be something that people can understand.
I like Mike's number 7.
Measurement-wise, the average usage of water in a residential sprinkler system is between 12 to 30 gallons per minute, so depending on how big your yard is. So if say, like last year, we had a cutoff point, we were only able to water for an hour, like, so those types of things we could measure for ourselves, which is a water restriction. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it is one thing that we can measure. We should see it on our water bills too. if you compare last year's versus 2 years you put in a restriction, you should be able to see the difference in gallons.
But how do you get people to do that? I've seen sprinklers on for 8 hours a day in one spot.
So, okay, when it comes to rules and regulations, you can only do as much as you can. You can't control the populace to do everything that you want them to. Of course, people are going to fight against it. That's a given. But you have to do your best, you have to put things into words, things on the paper, and do your due diligence, and then hope for the best. For the most part, people will do the right thing.
How many gallons a day do we use right now? Because in order to know what we're trying to save, you gotta tell us what we've been using.
Right.
I mean,
I'm just going by what the chart said earlier. They said average is roughly 300 gallons a day for a.
But
Yeah,
A
but in
family
order
home,
to,
roughly.
how are
Some
they
people
going
probably
to-
use 100, some.
how are they going to measure this in 6 years? Because there has to be showing some documentation for the last 6 years in order to know what the next 6 years are gonna have to be saving.
well, your personal meter reading would show, your personal meter readings, it shows how many gallons you use.
She doesn't have that.
As
Huh?
Dan shared, that our water use
Excuse me, Dessa, you're gonna have to start over, there was talking.
Oh, yes, ma'am. As Dan was sharing, there are reports that are submitted annually to the Department of Health, and part of that is how much water was produced and how much water was delivered. So that gives us the gallons that were used by the customers, and so that's how we will measure it over a 6-year time span.
So that's really important to clean up leaks.
As far as individual use, that could be something, like you said, cutting down on your sprinkler time, or watching your water bill and watching the usage on your water bill individually.
Right, but it's not, the town isn't gonna be monitoring every individual's bill to make sure they're using 25 less gallons a day. It's a voluntary measure, it's a goal that the town is
But if we
trying
have
to
leaking
encourage.
pipes that aren't being fixed, then the city needs to step in
Yeah,
on their side.
absolutely.
So when they're measuring that, are they measuring it coming from out of the well, or are they measuring it from our bill?
The well.
The well.
It'll come from the well production,
So that's a
yeah.
lot more accurate
Mhm.
computation.
Would there be a difference, because it's gonna be brought up, potable and non-potable water? Is there a difference on how much something, is that in this too?
I
We're
believe this is
only-
all for potable water,
Yeah, because that's what we're getting billed.
because that's
We're
what's
not getting
being,
billed for the non-potable out well, so
right.
that's a totally different deal.
I'm still saying these boys at the time people suffer
The power
because
bill
of
is.
bad management of these wells. And the solar water, 97,000 gallons to the trains, to the windmills, to the solar farms. Water was sold every week to farmers. When it was made, most of it was made not to sell it, that's still being sold.
Is that potable?
We're all gonna suffer because of bad management.
Well, this is part of the small water system management plan. It's not, it's part of the Department of Health requirements for operating a small water system. It's not just a requirement of Lynn. So all these requirements, the water use efficiency, all that is part of the Department of Health for all small water systems, not
Hey,
just Lynn.
can I ask you this, can we get grants for lead pipes?
Yes, yeah, there's funding available for lead pipe replacement. Well, there's a bunch of new funding that has just come out.
That's what it was reading.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the town hasn't applied for any of these grants.
So, Dessa and Lori, what's the next step here? The audience, it seems kind of like they've got a few goals here that they've kind of picked out.
Didn't Mike
So
make a
the
motion?
council, well,
Mike made a
made a
motion.
motion, but I don't know, there's no second, but, the council has to do that.
Yes, the council has to, according to the comments, the council has to adopt the motion.
So do we just have to adopt one goal right now, or
you're only required to adopt one that can be included in the plan. The Department of Health will approve it.
Yes, and I just put it up here, if you can still see the screen. It's just one goal for the demand side, and it has to be adopted by the council.
I say 25 gallons a day. There we both my motion on goal 7. And make a motion that we adopt goal 12.
Okay, there's been a motion to adopt goal 12, reduce seasonal summer demand by the 25 gallons per day
for residential customers within the next 6 years.
within the next 6 years. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so there's our goal.
Perfect, great job, everyone. That'll just need to be documented and sent to the Department of Health. We can send it up with the revisions of the small water system management guide. The next step would be to discuss the plan of working for the balanced budget and adopting the reserves that the Department of Health is requesting. But keep in mind, the first goal is to obtain that balanced budget and then work toward contributing to those reserves.
Just so that everyone knows what DESA and Lori were researching out of is the water use efficiency guideline, Department of Health. So that's very informative. Okay, so DESA, any more comments that you want to entertain from the audience?